I'm familiar with him mostly for his work with Buddhist recovery, but he's actually, more than that. He's an internationally recognized Buddhist meditation teacher, addiction treatment specialist, and published author. His background is insight meditation tradition, and he was empowered to teach through Against the Stream Buddhist Society. He has extensive experience bringing meditative interventions into jails, prisons, youth detention centers, and addiction treatment facilities. Dave teaches meditation retreats and classes, provides trainings and consulting in both secular and Buddhist contexts, and works with students directly through his meditation mentoring program. He recently founded the Secular Dharma Foundation and lives in Paonia, Colorado. Did I say that correctly? I don't
You
know.
did. You're very, very few people do. Kudos, kudos, my friend.
So, anyway, without further ado, um, Dave's going to give us a talk and leave a little time for Q&A at the end and
Okay.
include a meditation. So,
Well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. I'm happy and honored to be part of this summit. Buddhist recovery is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, although sometimes I get tired of it. But I think that's par for the course. So yeah, I am also, just to say, I am in recovery. I've been sober for 18 years. I mostly feel I've been part of AA and NA, and I feel like a identify as a drug addict and an alcoholic, and really have come to realize that really actually my addiction was just kind of a response to things like trauma, which is kind of people are waking up to that now. Big part of the 12 steps. I went to, you know, 4 AA meetings a week for 10 years. I don't really go anymore. I don't have a problem with it. I just sort of don't go. I'm busy. I live in the middle of nowhere. I have kids, you know. And I think that the marriage of Buddhism and recovery is a good one. It's also a very complicated one, and there's lots of different ways that it's complicated. And so I just kind of want to stay out of the weeds on that one, but really want to talk about, when I do these talks, one of the things I like is trying to boil things down to the lowest common denominator. So when we look at the human experience and we look at something like addiction or recovery, or we could look at suffering versus awakening from a Buddhist context, what is it when we boil it down? What is going on in the human system that seems to be driving all of this? So I want to talk a little bit and offer a meditation, but I want to talk a little bit about the difference between desire and craving. Now, usually it's very common for Buddhists and Buddhist teachers to use these words interchangeably. Sometimes if you look at a Buddhist book from the 70s, you might see something like the cause of suffering is desire, which I think is a problem. And so I want to talk a little bit about how these play out in terms of in Buddhist Abhidharma, Buddhist psychology, which are called mental factors. And so desire and craving are very, very different. Craving is the term that's associated with the second noble truth, the cause, what drives our suffering. Really, I would say the second noble truth, tanha, could easily be translated as addiction. And in fact, I believe in my studies, the teachings of the second noble truth, craving, clinging, tanha, upadana, 12 links of dependent origination, the defilements, all these words associated with the second noble truth, all could easily be translated simply as addiction. I think that's very easy to do. And I think that's maybe even the best term to use. And so what happens for individuals is also we do have desire. And if you look in the Buddhist Abhidharma, technically the term desire is understood to be an ethically neutral mental factor. So from Buddhist Abhidharma, Buddhist psychology, desire is non-ethical. Desire can go a whole variety of ways. And a lot of times what happens is we think or we believe that desire, if you kind of just ratchet desire up, that it turns to craving. But actually they're very different. And actually I would go so far as to say desire, or craving rather, craving is not an expression of desire, but actually a deeper repression of our own desire to be free. And so we have, as human beings, we have this innate, I think, desire to be happy. We have this innate desire to be safe, to have connection, to have meaningful lives, to live in the world with some degree of integrity. I think that we have this innate desire. And what happens as we grow up and as we go through life, that sense of desire gets damaged, we could say, or gets undermined or gets belittled. And then this kind of craving thing shows up and says, well, you don't need to deal with the pain and the disappointment and the confusion of not sort of getting what you want. You can just kind of drink this drink or take this pill or smoke this thing or do this behavior. Craving kind of, you know, comes to the rescue and says, you don't have to feel like this. And it's what it is. It's a delusional, confused response to dukkha, which is really the first noble truth, which is defined as not getting what you want, getting what you don't want. When we don't get the things that we desire and we get the things that we don't desire, that creates pain, that creates confusion. And if we can medicate ourselves from that pain and confusion, you damn well better believe we're going to. So as we kind of use Buddhism and recovery synonymously, I think what we're trying to do is trying to get in touch, or really what we're trying to recover is our core, authentic sense of the desires that we, becoming the people that we really want to be. And I also don't like this idea, and I don't believe that the Buddha taught that craving was the cause of dukkha. I don't believe that craving causes suffering. I think that that misses I think that belittles the Buddha's message. It's not so much that craving causes suffering, which of course it does, is that it actually blocks me from being the person that I want to become. It's not a cause of suffering. It's an obstacle. It's a hindrance. You know, the five hindrances. It's an obstacle. It's a hindrance. It's what blocks me. It's what keeps me in samsara, which means to go round and round and round. It keeps me in a samsaric existence. So as we overcome addiction, we could say, as we overcome clinging and craving, and we get more in touch with that innate sense desire, what we actually do is we flourish, or we could say we recover. And I think this is actually more authentic to the original message that we find in the in like the Pali Canon, for example. In the earliest teachings, the Buddha, this seems to be the message that he's really kind of trying to emphasize, which has kind of gotten obscured over the last 2,500 years. This whole thing of like, you know, craving causes suffering, put an end to craving, put an end to suffering once and for all, and live happily ever after. I don't think that's right, actually. I don't think we ever come to the end of dukkha. I think we always have to live with that sort of pain, that sense of woundedness, that sense of not always getting the things we want, getting the things we don't. I don't see how that would actually ever end, even from a logical point of view. So my work, I feel my work is to uncover that Dharma desire, which actually the Buddha talks about it in the canon all the time. Dhamma chanda, the desire for the Dharma, which I think probably if you've decided to spend your Friday evening on this call, you have this desire to use Dharma as a vehicle for your awakening, for your liberation, for your recovery, as a vehicle, as a map for your sense of human flourishing, and to have a meaningful life as best you can with the conditions you find yourself in. And I think that that's a really noble endeavor. And it's a lot of work because we find ourselves, I find myself every day being confronted with, I have the desire to exercise and eat healthy, but I really kind of don't want to go to the gym and I'd like to eat 4 or 5 Oreos right now. Like I deal with that shit every day. You know, so a lot of times uh, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of diligence, it takes a lot of integrity. It really takes a lot of Sila, which is really the meditation that I want to do tonight. Sila is a very, I think, misunderstood and not emphasized aspect of the Buddha's Dharma. We know the Eightfold Path, which is kind of the Buddhist 12 steps, right? On some level, the way to recover, the way to become awake is to cultivate this Eightfold Path, which is rooted in Sila, Samadhi, Paonia, ethics, meditation, and wisdom. I think we're really over obsessed with the meditation and the wisdom, and a lot of times we don't understand Sila as a kind of this uncovering, this recovering of this core desire to just be good, to be good, to have good, to do good, to have a good life, to have meaningful impact on the world. I think that that's really um, why we do this at the end of the day. I know that's why I do it at the end of the day. And so I want to do a practice that's called one of my trainings. The training that I most feel part of is from meditation point of view is the lineage of Mahasi Sayadaw, which I'm empowered to teach, Progress of Insight. It's just my opinion, and I say that that's all it is my opinion. But when I look at Buddhist meditation practices, it's been my experience that the Sayadaws of Burma have really developed the most elaborate system for mental development. They have the most elaborate system for understanding the mind as a phenomenological experience that arises and passes away in every moment. And they have a very elaborate time-tested systems on how we can, uh, you know, use the mind to our advantage, actually, rather than to our detriment. And there's a term that comes, usually we hear about Brahma Vihara. So this is a Brahma Vihara practice. A Brahma Vihara meaning to dwell in goodness, to dwell in beautiful mind. So Brahma Vihara, another way to say it, is a beautiful mind, a mind that's beautiful, a mind of kindness, compassion, gratitude, equanimity. But even before that, there is a Sila Brahma Vihara. And Sila really actually is kind of the doorway. Because one of the things that makes the Brahma Vihara practices so challenging for people, and in particularly people with addiction, is a feeling of, I don't deserve this. I'm unworthy. I'm not good enough. And if you find that to be part of your experience, as I have, then we usually don't want to start with Brahma Vihara. We want to start with Sila. So Sila Brahma Vihara, which is a recognition of my intention and my desire for goodness. I belong here. I'm allowed to be here. I'm good enough for this. Even me too. Whether whatever I've been through, whatever I've done, whatever I think about myself, actually from this point of view is irrelevant. But a recognition, an honest, heartfelt recognition of this desire, this core desire for freedom and for liberation and for goodness and for beautiful, beautiful mind is really a great practice. And most people, you'd probably be hard pressed to find anybody on a retreat or a class who would teach Sila as a guided practice. So that's what we're going to do this evening. And to really uncover and really probably find that you don't have to dig all that far to find it. That's sort of the thing about it is we think about things like compassion, but we forget that you already care. You know, we think of compassion as like Star Wars Dharma, like in a galaxy long time ago, far, far away, there was this thing called compassion that people had, but I don't have it. It's actually right there. It's like you already care. You're already kind. You're already a good person. And you're already embodying those qualities, but you're not recognizing or acknowledging, or actually more importantly, cultivating a mindfulness, sati sila, which is what I have tattooed on my knuckles, ironically. Sati sila, mindfulness of goodness, mindfulness of integrity. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope that lands for you. I hope that fits in your Buddhist understanding to some degree. Not very foreign ideas, very core to all forms of Buddhism, these ideas I'm talking about. So we'll do a guided practice of Sila here for maybe 25 minutes or so, and then you can ask questions and we can have some dialogue. I'd love to hear your reflections on this. So you can find a comfortable way to sit that's both upright, straightforward, and easeful. And I'll start and end with the sound of the bell. And to simply begin to just bring your full awareness into present time experience, feeling the body full of awareness, feeling all of the sensations of the body, heat and temperature, gravity, coolness. Rising and falling, in and out breathing. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this kind of practice posture. So for just the next minute or so, to just practice a simple awareness of things as they are right now, just as you find yourself here this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever your time is. And just a simple mindfulness of tuning into your direct experience for the next few minutes. And as you tune more deeply into your present time experience, so just see if you can allow your awareness to land or to begin to rest towards the general area at and around your heart center, across from the top of the left shoulder to the right shoulder, releasing any tension or tightness in the body from the area from the tip of the chin down through the neck and throat into the belly button, softening all of the muscles, all of the somatic experience of that region. And just allowing the awareness to tune to the rising and falling of in and out breathing. An openness to the heart and mind. And as you tune into the heart center, the moment to moment experience of breathing in, breathing out, to see if you can just begin to sense, to recognize, or to simply feel into your own desire to be free, your own well wishing, your own desire, intention to be free, to be at ease, to be okay in this world, just as it is right now. See if you can just become familiar with that. It can be expressed as a desire, a wish, an aspiration, an intention, but a movement of heart, an energy, a felt energy of freedom, awakening, recovery. For the next few minutes, to really allow yourself to tune into that, guided by the rise and fall of the in and out breaths, senses in the body. Really dedicating your full experience to this inquiry, this questioning, looking and feeling inward. And as we look and feel and develop this sense of goodness, freedom, desire, this is a fundamental, very fundamental aspect of Sila, of integrity, of goodness, of Dharma. And then expanding a bit more to reflect on our qualities of integrity, reflecting on our goodness in the ways in which we find ourselves to be honest, generous, accepting, or patient. But simply calling to mind those qualities of heart, of behavior, beautiful behavior that you already are engaging in. The sati sila, mindfulness of goodness. Your wish and desire to be a positive agent of change in the world and in your life and in those people who you encounter. And as you do this, continue to invite all of yourself into this space, all of you, the whole piece. And just tuning into this basic desire for goodness. And then to slowly expand this practice, reflecting on this desire to cultivate the Sila Brahma Vihara, the heart of Brahma Vihara, the heart of Dharma, to expand this goodness into kindness, of friendliness. May I be at ease. May I learn to be friendly with my mind and my body. Seeing myself through the lens of friendliness. May I be at ease. This heart of metta, kind friendliness. And expanding to be aware of the challenges that we face in our lives. All of the things that we have desired, the things we've wanted that we haven't gotten, or the things that have happened to us that were unfavorable, undesired, to expand into this heart of karuna, of compassion. I care about this experience. May I learn to care about myself and my pain and my confusion. So we recognize this quality of goodness, desire of goodness, well-wishing to meet ourselves with kindness, of friendliness. And as these expand, they become more challenging as we try to have compassion and a deep sense of care for that which hurts. And as we move through the exercise, you might find you become distracted by thoughts or feelings, memories. That's okay. Just remembering to return back to this felt sense of rising and falling with the breath. Remembering to recognize this quality of goodness, of ease and kindness, of caring. And to expand even further, to include, to recognize all of the goodness of this life, of this world, all of the joy, a sense of gratitude and appreciation for all of the benefit, all of the goodness, all of the recovering moments. May I learn to appreciate all of the goodness in my life. May I be filled with gratitude and appreciation for all of the goodness that I have received and generated. And as we cultivate, the word here is to cultivate these qualities in this soil of Sila, the soil of goodness. May we attend to the seed of metta, of kindness, which blossoms into the blossom of caring and compassion, which is watered by tears of joy, of gratitude, under the cool shade of the tree of equanimity. So this cultivation of the heart of beautiful behavior. And from this soil, this rich soil of Sila, of goodness, of aspiration, we find this seed of metta, of kindness, which grows into the blossom of care and compassion, watered by tears of joy, tears of gratitude, under the cool shade of the tree of equanimity. The cool warmth of equanimity, this caring and this non-attachment. And just practicing with that on your own as best you can for the next few minutes. Continuing to explore these qualities of heart, of mind. And as you become more and more familiar with your internal experience, your heart, your mind, to just reflect, what is it that's most needed for you right now? This desire for freedom, of goodness, kindness, compassion, gratitude, equanimity. Which one is it that you feel you really most need right now? See if you could develop that and focus on that quality for the last few minutes of the practice. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your practice this evening. So, some time left. I'm sure we could talk about this all day, but I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions or reflections you have about either anything that I've said or about the practice we just did. So, love to open it up and yeah.
Yeah, if people want to raise their hand, and or if you don't feel comfortable talking, you can post your question in the chat. Um, I wanted to thank you, Dave, comment wise. I have a whole nother way of looking at Sila now. It's I
I wish we all looked at it a little bit more because it's kind of like the goods.
mm-hmm. It's too often in a recovery meeting context where maybe I presented it as rules or restrictions, and people kind of get their 12-step aversion thing going, and they're like, oh, I don't want rules. And
That's right.
I think if you present it as just basic goodness, I think that's just, I don't know, just I think it's so important though for us to have structure in our recovery, and Buddhism does provide that structure when you look at it as a whole, not just say I like this piece, I like that piece. um,
Well, yeah, I think you're pointing to something that's super important, especially in the Buddhist recovery world, is that there's two sides to the coin of sila. There's restraint, but there's also cultivation. And we usually get hung up on the restraints, which is the thou shalt not kind of mind that we all have. That's important, to some degree. But the other side of it is the cultivation of beautiful behaviors. It, you know, only part of sila is about sort of not doing destructive or harmful things, but there's all this stuff to be doing. And I think that we miss out on that. I don't think we always get the full picture on that one. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
yeah, thanks for the insight. Anybody else? Let's see, look around for raised hands. We have one question in the chat about what is the type of meditation Sila. I'm going to paste it into chat.
I can see it probably.
I just kind of put the quick little summary into the chat, but
I think you sent it to me directly.
oh, sorry.
Sorry.
But I mean, we might have people in the room that aren't even necessarily haven't gotten the Eightfold Path intro, so that's
Well, you know, yeah. See the question here: sacred skill in Buddhism.
Oh, that's just what I
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, people usually think about it. You know, "seal" is a hard word to translate, and it usually gets translated. The worst translation for it we see is morality. You know, that word carries a lot of baggage. Ethics is a little bit better of a term, but even that can kind of be a little bit kind of "thou shall not." But I think it's really later schools of Buddhism actually translate "sila" as discipline. And I think that's good. I also think integrity. So the question becomes, and it's also not about like ascribing to the Buddhist lists. Integrity is about understanding what your core values are. And they're probably different for everybody. There's some universal themes. Like for some of us, honesty is really important. Some of us, fidelity is really important. Some of us, we all have our kind of basic pedigree of qualities that are important. But then the question becomes, how much integrity and discipline do I have to my own sense of that? And so it really, I think Sila as integrity, and in the that word also too carries some nice weight in the recovery world. You know, having some integrity, and I think seeing it more that way rather than sort of like, here's the shit you're not supposed to be doing if you were a good Buddhist. You know, like that just really creates especially addicts too. Like, you know, it's like I don't, I have a huge part of my mind that says, don't tell me what to do. And, you know, if we can bypass that, I think that we're doing everybody a big favor. I saw a hand pop up there. How about Stanley?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Hopefully you can hear me.
I hear you great. Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. So I was joining while I was still on the train back coming home, so I got cut off at some point. So if this was already addressed, then I'll just apologize in advance. But what I caught, which was really interesting to me, and I wanted to ask about, was this was relating Sila to the recovery world. Maybe it's like the 12-step elephant in the room, just to bring it into like comparing the concept of Sila to different concepts in 12-step, like serenity or integrity. I'm just trying to connect, like the way that you were describing Sila during the meditation, I think, or intro to it, was really interesting to me. What the part that was really interesting to me was, it's not that caricature of Buddhism, maybe even my own caricature of like of not wanting anything, of being completely neutral. It's actually, in a way, without striving, it's actually aiming for something. And I think I definitely have caught myself playing into the caricature of Buddhism being like this absolutely neutral state. So I just wanted to, maybe, I don't know, I'm just kind of wandering around in my head here, but
No, I think you're pointing to something huge, actually, and I think it's a very common trap that people fall into with Buddhism, and especially when you have recovery in the mix too. It's like, okay, craving causes suffering, so I should just fucking not want anything.
yeah, right.
You know, which is really just actually very dismissive and kind of a self-betrayal. And so I think, and we have to understand that also, that can also masquerade as equanimity. And Buddhist teachers are famous for this crap, you know, masquerading as being like equanimous, as if sort of nothing bothers me anymore. Like basically I could just sort of care less. And so we have to understand that the near enemy of equanimity is what you're pointing to, which is actually indifference. We're not looking for a posture of indifference, actually. We're looking for a posture of goodness, of kindness, of compassion. So yes, there is actually an aim here. and there is a direction, and there is an aim, and there is a desire, and there is a wanting to have a flourishing life. There is desire, and desire, again, as I said in the opening talk, desire can oftentimes get lumped into craving, and it's like, well, I just shouldn't want anything, and if I didn't want anything, then when I don't get it, I won't be upset. Like, that's very, very destructive, actually. And so part of it is like desire, again, ethically neutral. So it's trying to actually develop a Sila-based desire system that we use to navigate the world. And that, put in that light, Dharma practice actually can be very exciting. And that's what it is. We're not monks, right? None of us are.
Mm-hmm.
We are secular people living in a secular world. We're non-monastic, so we are even further encouraged to get hedonic pleasure and to enjoy the world, to be in the world, and that that takes some care and some skill. But I think we have to. I don't think we can toss that aside. I think that's very destructive.
Yeah, I think that's like denying. There's a lot of denial involved in doing that.
Yeah, and denial doesn't get a good reputation in the addiction world, as we know.
Yeah,
Denial
right.
does not get high praise in recovery. And you're right. And I think it's actually even take it a step further. I think it's a betrayal of our humanity.
Mm.
And it also is a destructive kind of joy. It's like, I'm not going to participate in joy because if I do, I'm going to get burned when it goes away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to want anything because I can't handle the sadness and the disappointment. I can't handle the backside of impermanence, so I'm not even going to play. And hey, I've done this. Yeah, George, please. Thank you, Stanley. That's a really important reflection.
If I'm honest, I was really I really liked the meditation and liked the guidance, and but at the same time I was really restless. I've been sitting at this desk for all day working, and so I just found, I was just really dealing with restless, don't want to sit mind. Maybe I'll look at my phone while Dave keeps talking, and standing up and having kind of restless legs, all that, So, but it brings to mind also, you talk about I am also in the don't exercise and eat 6 Oreos lineage. And, where I just wonder how Sila practice or even recovery practice is, I have managed to put together 23 years without drinking and drugging, but, I've put together a couple of hours since I had some caramel popcorn.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And I struggle because I do have a strong critical voice. So when we're working in Sila and we're looking at our desire to be good and whatever, there's a part of me that's saying, it's okay, George, it's okay if if you don't want to go to the gym right now, or if you're restless, or if you're craving a cookie, it's okay. On the other hand, not exercising and eating cookies and being restless during meditation doesn't assist in my growth and path. So I just never know really how to work between acceptance and action, and if there's maybe something in the Sila teaching that has some insight for that.
I mean, I think it's the question you just asked, the Buddhist recovery question, right? Like, that's it, and I think once we put our primary addiction aside, whether it's drinking, drugs, alcohol, once we get past the primary thing and we get to 20 years in AA, then it's all harm reduction from there on out. And it's like, it's really, really hard. I think that literally in every single moment or every other moment, I'm always being conflicted with the desire craving dichotomy. Well, I actually want to go to the gym and be healthy, and I also want the cookie. And it's like, well, which one is desire and which one is craving? And like, you're never going to win that game You know what I mean? But you just have to be, I feel like part of the Sila practice is allowing myself to practice with that and just be like, I'm going to be continuously irritated by this. This is a dukkha thing. And like, and it's like part of it, it's like, it's like it's like, even like if you look at like, blackjack, right? Like the house only has a 7% advantage over you when you sit at the blackjack table. So like if I can 57% go to the gym and not eat the cookie, like I'm going to win in the long run. Like we don't need that much. Right? We don't need to, it's not black and white. We just need like, if I can, like as the Buddha says, right? Like the tree that leans to the west will fall to the west. The tree that leans to the east will fall to the east. I just have to be leaning towards the gym and the kale salad, right? Like I just need to be leaning, like even 60-40s, you're going to win at 60-40. You just got to hang in there. And I think part of it is like, for me, it's just like accepting that this is my struggle. And what happens a lot of times is, I don't know about you, but I want something to struggle. I want something else to struggle out. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I'm happy to suffer and I'm happy to struggle, but give me another topic besides cookies and treadmills, man. Like I want some new material. I get tired of the same fucking thing over and over again. And like, I think part of the practice is just saying yes to like, okay, this isn't like my thing. And I think people in addiction, it's not surprising, we usually end up in some kind of food thing or entertainment thing or sex thing or scratch ticket thing or whatever. We always end up in some kind of less destructive kind of addictive pattern. But I think we just have to like forgive ourselves for that and say like, this is just kind of, I guess this is just kind of be like what I'm going to be dealing with for the long run here, and say yes to it. And like, it's like, even if you lose 5 pounds a year for the next 5 years, man, that's 25 pounds, dude. Like that's a lot, like, a pound a month, or whatever. Like, like we don't like to play the long game. You know what I mean? Like I want to go for a walk and eat a salad and lose 30 pounds. That's how my mind operates. I'm like, it's like, I had a salad for lunch and I went for a walk and I didn't lose any weight. This is bullshit. This isn't working. But that's a very addict thing too, right? Like I want the quick fix shortcut thing, and it's ironic becoming a Dharma teacher, because it's like, if the Dharma is anything, it's not a short-term solution to anything. So I hope that helps. And I'm with you on that one. I get it, man. But it's just like, I think it's just waking up every day and saying, I'm going to try to do better today than I did yesterday, man. And if I don't, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And like 6 hours is pretty good, it turns out, actually, when it comes to sugar and carbs. I see a question here. I'm struggling with numbness and purposelessness. So Chandra, energy, desire would be so helpful. Yeah, like that's tough, right? There's actually, if you ever listen to it, there's a really good podcast that I like called 10% Happier. It's kind of a secular mindfulness thing, Dan Harris. He has a recent one. If you look at some of the recent ones, there's one on languishing. And languishing is kind of the opposite of flourishing. And languishing is kind of when we get stuck in that purposelessness, kind of lack of energy, lack of desire. So I would check that podcast out. I actually got a lot of mileage out of it. And it's just kind of like, how do you jumpstart that stuff? It's hard, it's hard because languishing is kind of takes on a life of its own. But I think part of our job and part of our work is, if you feel purposelessness, then you have to find a purpose. You have to, and part of that integrity is that straightforwardness is like, all right, like, I don't feel like my life is meaningful and has a lot of purpose right now. And so it's like, well, then your job is to go out and find that. You have to do that. And, and that takes some gumption, and it takes some elbow grease. Purpose isn't going to come knock on your front door and say, here you are, it's like, so we have to realize we got to have some skin in the game.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Could you repeat that, please, the podcast?
Yeah, it's a podcast, and I don't love the guy, but it's pretty good. His name is Dan Harris. He has a podcast called 10% Happier. It's on like iTunes, you know, and there's a bunch of Dharma stuff. There's a bunch of mindfulness stuff. There's a lot. Kevin Griffin's been on there a couple times. It's really good. And one of the recent, probably within the last 5 episodes, if you look at it, there's one, this guy, I forget what his name is, but he's been doing a lot of work on languishing, which is kind of the opposite of flourishing. And a lot of people have
Yeah.
languished during the time of COVID, you know, we're stuck at home, sitting around, nothing to do. You know, fucking Netflix in the refrigerator, man. You know, that becomes refuge pretty quick. And, you
Yeah,
know,
really. Oh my God. Thank you.
thank you. And I get it. I mean, I think we just have to understand also that, like, I always say this to my 12-step friends, my people who want to do Buddhist recovery and they don't want to do the 12 steps. I'm like, dude, this is way harder. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the 12 steps actually in this conversation is a little bit the easier, softer way. You know, like Dharma work is hard work, you know, and it's like, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that this is actually, that we do have to have some skin in the game. And this does require some work and require some effort on your part. And we should we should have some integrity about that. And that feels, to me, that I get excited. That feels good. You know, Sila actually feels good. You know, when you do the right thing, when you help somebody, we know this, right? You drive somebody to meet. When you help, have you noticed that when you help somebody, you feel so good? Imagine that. So, you know, Sila actually, it really does feel good to be honest and to be in our integrity. And when our values and our behaviors are congruent or aligned, we just, and this is like documented clinical research science. This isn't even Buddhism. But when our values and our actions are congruent, we just feel good. We feel really good about ourselves when we do the things that we want to do, and when we are being the people that we aspire to be. We as human beings, we just kick ass when we do that. And of course, as soon as we do it, we stop doing it, because that's sort of how it goes. But it's the low-hanging fruit. Sila is the low-hanging fruit.
Oh, love that. All right. Well, I think we're at time. It's hard to draw this to a close. It's been great. Really appreciate it.
You're well done, Dave. It was fabulous.
Thank you. I love this topic. And also, too, if you want to follow me anymore, I think my website is probably here somewhere, but I'm easy to find. I'm at davesmithdharma.com. And if you want to connect with me or find out some of the other stuff I do quite a lot of other things. And if you want to work with me more or do some of the stuff that I do, I certainly invite you to check it out.
Oh. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Just want to let you know a little bit about what's next in the summit. Tonight, there's a 8-step meeting about an hour and a half from now. Vanessa's leading. And then tomorrow is the big day of lots of events, starting at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And so I hope you all have access to this page, are going to come to some of these other events. Let's see, what else? I guess just a word to say that this is all brought to you by Grassroots Power. And as we wind down the meeting, I'm going to put up a little Donna box, electronic version of it. And so we appreciate any support you can give us and for this event. Like,
all right, y'all. I'm going to go downstairs and hang out with my children, who you've probably been hearing screaming in the background.
yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. We'll see
Thank
you
you,
around.
Dave.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dave.
Take it easy out there, everybody.